We're following breaking news out of the Middle East. Here's a live look at Tel Aviv after Iran launched its deadly retaliatory attacks. Israel's defense minister warning Tehran will burn if it keeps up these missile attacks. At least 3 people were killed and more than 170 others were injured overnight. According to Israel health authorities, we're getting those numbers, and Israel's ambassador to the U.S. telling Cuomo why this escalation by Israel needed to happen now.
Our intel shows that they're racing forward and using the negotiations in order to cover their sprint towards a nuclear bomb, which could have been within days or weeks. So it's not like we didn't inform the administration. As President Trump said this morning, he knew full well that this is the track that we have chosen to take. We could not wait any longer.
Joining us now is TheHill.com's Zach Schoenfeld, live from Washington, D.C., with more on this. All right, Zach, what more can you tell us about President Trump's response? There's so much to unpack here. All right, TheHill.com's Zach Schoenfeld, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. And here with us now, live from Tel Aviv, is Colonel Mary Eisen, retired from the Israel Defense Forces and senior fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism. Colonel, thank you so much for joining us today. We want to take a look at what we're seeing with the damage from these overnight attacks. I mean, it's just absolutely devastating once again to see what's going on. What's the reaction on the ground in Israel? What can you tell us?
I'm sitting here in Tel Aviv, and some of the attacks and some of what you're seeing now is in both Tel Aviv and the cities in and around, the greater Tel Aviv area. Laura, I have to tell you, I've lived here my whole life. I've gone through all the different things. We've gone through 2 Iranian attacks in April and October of 2024. This is not the same thing. It is scary, it's harsh, and we're resilient and strong. And I say that as I'm sitting here right now, that it's very quiet here. I heard before one of the people saying that in LA it's quiet because people are not allowed to go outside. So in Israel it's quiet because we're not going outside. We're sticking very safe areas close to home. You want to be near that safe area. You want to know where it is. So the only upside I can say is that you can hear the birds chirping a lot on this Shabbat, this Saturday day, but it is very quiet here. It's a tense feeling, but I do think we're resilient and we're strong.
Yeah, and I want to hone in on what you just said, that this time it feels different, because we just talked to NewsNation's Robert Sherman, who's traveling into the region today for us to get us more perspective and reporting from the ground. And he mentioned just in the travel from the U.S. to where you are, that it felt different for him, too. And I can only imagine the very idea of where you are right now and just worrying about what is coming from the sky next. I mean, it is absolutely terrifying. It's like you're walking through a slow-moving nightmare.
It is, but we do very much believe both in the defense systems that have been built over the last decade in cooperation between both Israel and the United States with the backing of different U.S. administrations. So we have the interceptors. And Laura, I'm a military person, and so I absolutely believe in the interceptors, but I actually also understand the statistics. And what really happened over the last 24 hours is horrible statistics, meaning we intercept 90 to 95%. And what happened in the last 24 hours is that under 10% got through. 3 people were killed, around 100 were injured. People who were doing the right thing, they were in safe areas, not necessarily the best kind. I think we're all noticing that right now. So it's very tense, it's very uncomfortable, but we do believe in the different defense systems that have been built, let alone the offensive attacks that Israel is doing as we speak right now over Iran against the different launch sites.
I appreciate that perspective. I'm curious on your thoughts of why the Prime Minister of Netanyahu had to act swiftly with Iran. We know that it happened swiftly. Why do you think that was?
It's the combination of something that you are looking at long term. I liked to call Iran in the last couple of years an almost threshold nuclear state. And when you're there, the question of timing already becomes about the operational and intelligence information you have on hand. Do you wait? Don't you wait? So I think that we were definitely building up this capability over years, that it became much more clear in the last year, in the last few months, that they're almost at that threshold. And then it already becomes the operational capability capability with the intel, the intelligence on what day you do that. And I think that opening attack that happened on what is for Israel, late Thursday night, early Friday morning, and that as it continued, show that very targeted, precise attack against a lot of decision makers. And when I say decision makers, not lawmakers, not that you have lawmakers in the Islamic regime of Iran, but this is against the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, against the top echelon of those different military commanders, attacking the air defenses, all of that capability to do it simultaneously. That's the operational and intel. The timing in itself is because Iran was about to be that threshold nuclear state. And I think all of us understand, Laura, at least all of us normal people, that nobody in the world wants Iran to be a nuclear power.
Right.
That is the worst idea we could have.
Yeah, and now we've got Iranian news reporting that Iran is planning strikes against U.S. military bases. So we've got that going on. So what do you think? Should the U.S. expect some sort of retaliation? I know that there were some evacuations of U.S. personnel in the area.
It was done even before the attacks themselves started, kind of the buildup towards it. So first of all, I say to everybody, always, it's Iran. The Islamic regime of Iran won't only attack the U.S. in this area. That means military bases mainly. The Islamic regime of Iran will attack anywhere. I think that people need to be on high alert because that is what that state-sponsored terrorism does all of the time. They've done it for years. There have been cells that were arrested not too long ago, both in the UK and in Germany. So we all should be on alert, specifically when it comes to the Middle East. Yes, I do think that there's a strong possibility that they will do so, but that's a choice that the Islamic regime of Iran has to make. Do they want to very clearly have the United States join in? Because I don't see the United States not responding. And that's something that they have to choose right now for the Islamic regime of Iran. For the world, it's about Israel against the Islamic regime of Iran. And if the Islamic regime attacks the U.S., Laura, they're bringing in all of those capabilities as well.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about the U.S. involvement. As we take a look on the sidelines, do you think that it's going to get there?
I don't know. I really do think that in this case, it's up to what the Islamic regime of Iran wants to portray. I'm not sure that they want the United States to join in. I think that there's a lot of rhetoric going on, and what they want to do is to try to have everybody on the sidelines in every way. They want to threaten the United States, the UK, France, that they shouldn't help Israel in any way, not in supplies, not in armaments, not in any way. And that's part of the rhetoric game. It's not a game at all. I think that we're standing strong. Personally, I would like to see more countries on board. I think that it's something which is important, but I understand that there are differences here. And we took this step on our own. We do think that the threat is not a threat against Israel. It's a threat that is really against all of the Western world.
Yeah, and they say that timing is everything. Nuclear deal talks were expected to continue tomorrow between Iran and the U.S. However, now Iranian officials say those talks would be, quote, meaningless. At this point, obviously, with all that's going on, do you see Iran ever coming back to the table for negotiations? I mean, it kind of seems like it's a far-off idea.
Far-off idea, but it was President Trump in the first administration who was the one who upped and left that nuclear deal. They came back to talk with this President Trump, meaning when it comes to negotiations, and I'll say it in a general way, we're in a war right now. This is a harsh war. I'm sitting here in Tel Aviv. It's not easy, but at the end, there will be diplomatic negotiations, and even to bring to the end of this war, there will be some kind of diplomatic act. So yes, they will come back at the end. The question is at what stage it will be. At this stage, I think that the Iranian Islamic regime is still reeling from the initial attack. To be clear, the initial attack was not a one-thing quick fix. There's still a lot of things that need to be done. It's not over. Even the amazing six-day war took 6 days. We're only at day number 2. But I do think that the Islamic regime in time will come back to the table. For them, they have no choice. By the way, they don't mind being at the table. For them, let's negotiate forever.
I'm just curious, really quick, if you could give me a short answer. Do you see yourself leaving? I just wonder about you and your family and your friends as you're sitting there. No, you're going to stay put?
I'm not just going to stay put. I feel safer here than anywhere else in the world. I tell you, both as an Israeli, as a Jew, as somebody who was born in the United States but has lived here my whole life, I feel way safer here than I do anywhere else in the world. I believe, not just belief in my, God's belief, in the belief in the Israeli military, in the security forces, in our right to be here. We're here and we're going to be strong.
Okay.
We'll be able to talk, Laura, you and I, in a long time.
Okay, well, I look forward to that, and our audience does as well. We want to thank you, retired Colonel Mary Eisen. Thank you so much for joining us today. Stay safe, and we'll check back in.